Shortly after the passing of constitutional carry by the legislature in Florida, 11 people are shot and 2 are left in critical condition, with a suspect mysteriously at large. But we'll go over some of the details of this, what you should look out for if you are in the Lakeland area, and what this means for the current arguments. In other news, Memphis officers are indicted for Tyre Nichols' death, and many of them had previous reprimands. Plus, we will be looking at a series of EMTs who also lost their jobs over the response to the tragedy. So we'll be talking about that, how this affects us in the real world, and what is going on with that. The chair of California Reparations Panel is pushing for a wealth tax to pay for the reparations, proving once again that yes, that money does have to come from somewhere and they can't just print it back up out of thin air. And oh, I lost my place. Apologize. And a Republican lawmaker dares Biden to classify an alleged Swalwell Fang report to see what's actually going on with that. It is going to be all this and more. I got more votes than Kevin McCarthy. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Man, I gotta figure out what's going on here. If it's just the keto, or be kicking back into ketosis, or what the deal is. Where, it's just, it seems to be one night a week. I lay in bed, because I go to bed at the same time every night, and then I lay awake there, insomniatically. And it happened again last night here, and it's showing here because I lost my place while I was trying to do the cold open. So I have no idea what's at it here, but I can tell you right now, I'm probably going to go grab something to eat here right after we're done off the air and get myself into bed, because man, oh Friday, am I feeling it right now. But luckily enough, and fortunately enough, we actually have what seems to be a slow news day. We don't even have a lot to talk about as far as the debt ceiling goes, which has been driving most of this program here. I know that most of the rest of the news media and even the independent media has moved off of the debt ceiling right now, but it's still very important to me. It's something that I think we need to focus on, because it is going to come back and bite us down the road unless we call our lawmakers and make demands that they do something about it right now, especially as we're starting to see climbs in the Dow as the investors are not even paying attention to the fact that something like this is happening, which tells me that there may be a backdoor deal in the works. And I do have a couple stories about it. It's not going to be like these 7-story panels like we've been having for the last few days, but I got a couple stories, including another Hail Mary where Democrats and Republicans can work together to bypass the Speaker of the House to make it all happen, and we'll be talking about that as well, plus the Tyre Nichols drama, the shooting in Florida, and much more over here in Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Breckenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, and the No Gimmicks podcast, as we work together to try to bring you a better news experience. That is right, we are looking for a news experience that is from the common man and for the common man. We are looking to get you news that is not coming from people who have to wear, or who get to wear suits that cost more than your house. They don't really have to, I guess that's just a point of privilege for them, but go check out all that great programming as we try to bring you that better news experience. And let's get down into the news of the day today and see what is happening, starting with the finance. And when I say starting with the finance, I mean first we're actually going to make sure that we're targeting in the right window, because after the restart, always after the restart. Now I have to go back and make sure that we are targeted into the right place. So give me just a second here while we do our settings on air production. Always a wonderful thing. Let's do that one instead. There we go. That's the one I want you guys to be looking at here. And let's start with the Dow. A little bit on air production for you. The Dow spent the day up, with the exception of a little bit of falter at the beginning of the day, ending the day at 34,086.04. Looking good for right now for this particular admin and the economy that they say that they're going to, but something to watch for, especially if you are trying to put some of your savings back into stocks and try to pad up your 401k, and that is the fact that if we do hit that magical R word, recession, coming out here, a lot of what you put into here is going to disappear. This is not official financial advice. As always, you should go and check out and make sure that your financial advisor, who knows your situation the best and has your best interests at heart, goes through and looks through your portfolio, sees what's best for you, sees what's not best for you, and see if you should be investing more or if you should be sitting on the sideline. But we'll continue to follow this and see what happens here. Looking in at the Bitcoin, which also spent the day up throughout the day today, with a major dip bringing it back down to almost its break-even level before spiking back up to the point where it was at right before it dipped. 23,134 US dollars and 60 US cents. That is up 301 US dollars and 70 US cents on the day, or about 1 1/3% on the day today. So we'll continue to watch this, continuing to notice that this is the first thing that people can buy that'll actually hopefully gain them some wealth if they do decide to get in on the Bitcoin train, but also the first thing that can be liquidated and fastest into cash. So it's usually an indicator of what the economy is expected to do within the next couple days. Not the next couple weeks, but definitely the next couple days. So we will continue to watch this and see what's happening with this. Gas prices in the Madison area, largely unchanged. Still no news here, but we'll continue to watch this and see what happens with this as we go, continuing to use these same metrics in the same general region and looking at the same stations over and over again to watch what the trends are doing. Let's grab one from IBD. Dow futures, market rallies into Fed rate hike. AMD, Snap are key movers late from Ed Carson. Dow futures fell slightly after hours, along with the S&P and the Nasdaq futures, with attention turning to the Federal Reserve meeting announcement on Wednesday. AMD and Snap stock headlined overnight earnings. The stock market rally rebounded Tuesday, recouping much of Monday's retreat. Ahead of the Fed meeting announcement Wednesday afternoon, several key economic reports and an OPEC Plus meeting will come in the morning. AMD and Snapchat parent Snap reported after the close. AMD earnings and revenues slightly beat views. The chipmaker sees quarter-one revenues down 10%, worse than consensus, but better than feared. AMD rose slightly after hours. Shares rose 3.7% to $75.15 on Tuesday. AMD is working on a bottoming base with a 79.33 buy point. It's well below the 200-day line, but a real breakout would involve clearing that key level. AMD rival Nvidia edged lower in late trading. Nvidia rose nearly 2% to 195.37 on Tuesday in a buy range from a short cup base. Snap earnings topped views, but revenue just missed. The social network sees quarter one revenue tracking 42% to 10% decline. Snapchat stock plunged overnight. Shares climbed 4.2% to $11.56 on Tuesday. Snap earnings and guidance presage Meta Platforms and Pinterest. Presage rather, Meta Platforms and Pinterest. Presage, I don't even know what that word would mean. Presage, kind of looking in and seeing what could be coming down the future. Yeah, that makes sense, but presage, what are we, French? Facebook, parent Meta Platforms, reports Wednesday night with Pinterest due next Monday. Meta stock fell slightly late after closing just below the 200-day line. Pinterest declined modestly. Pinterest has a 3 weeks tight entry modestly above key moving averages. Early Wednesday, Tesla China rivals NIO, Li Auto, XPeng will report January deliveries, the Lunar New Year holiday, as well as heavy COVID infections hit sales last month, so it's hard to draw conclusions about February and beyond, especially in the wake of Tesla price cuts that rivals are still reacting to. NIO stock and XPeng are in bottoming bases, but well below their 200-day lines. Li Auto is butting up against the 200-day. EV and battery giant BYD is flashing an aggressive entry from its 200-day line, with January sales due later this week. Tesla soared nearly 41% in January, vaulting above its 50-day line, but doesn't have a clear buy point. The Federal Reserve is set to slow rate hikes for a second straight meeting, increasing the Fed funds rate by a quarter point at 2 p.m. Eastern Time Wednesday to a 4.5% to 4.75% range. That follows half-point hike in December after 4 straight 75 basis point increases in November. Markets overwhelmingly expect another quarter-point Fed rate hike in late March to 4.75% to 5%, but then investors are leaning towards no more hikes. You're going to be sorry. I hate to tell you this, but you're going to be sorry. So, central bank hints about the rate hike outlook, inflation, and the economy will be key. Will the Fed policy statement keep language expecting ongoing increases? Jerome Powell, speaking at 2:30, will certainly stress the Fed's commitment to keeping rates high to bring down inflation, but with rate hikes slowing and close to a pause, Fed Chief Powell may be more subtle, keeping the central bank's options open. Before the Fed meeting announcement, investors will get another batch of economic data. The ADP employment report for January will be out at 8:15 a.m. Eastern Time, with December job openings and the January ISM Manufacturing Index at 10 a.m. Eastern. On Friday, the January jobs report is due. Before the March meeting, the Fed will get the February jobs report as well as the January and February CPI inflation reports. Early Tuesday, the employment cost index came in slightly lighter than expected. The ECI, a broad measure of worker compensation, rose 1% in quarter 4, the third straight quarter of decelerating growth. On the futures, Dow futures fell 0.2 versus fair value, the S&P dipped 0.3, and the Nasdaq fell 0.4. The 10-year yield dipped 2 points to 3.51%, and remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Alright, let's talk about the Fed meeting here, and then we will get into the main news of the day. From CNBC, Fed expected to slow rate hiking to a quarter point, but will stay unrelenting in inflation battle. From Patty Dom. The Federal Reserve is expected to raise interest rates by just a quarter point, but is also likely to signal it will stay vigilant in its fight against inflation even as it reduces the size of the hikes. The Fed releases its latest rate decision Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and the Fed Chair Jerome Powell briefs the media at 2:30 p.m. The expected quarter-point hike follows a half percentage point increase in December, and it would be the smallest increase in the federal funds target rate since the first hike of the cycle last March. While the meeting is expected to be relatively uneventful, strategists say it could be a challenge for the Fed chief to temper his reaction in financial markets. The markets have been rising as investors expect the central bank might succeed in a soft landing, or the economy while also snuffing out inflation sufficiently to move back to easing policy. When? We're not even close to that. How is he going to tell people to calm down, chill out, and don't get so excited by us getting close to the end of the interest rate increases? Said Peter Bukvar, Chief Investment Officer at Bleakley Financial Group. He's going to do that by still saying the Fed's going to stay tight for a while. Just because he's done doesn't mean it's a quick bridge to ease. The Fed's rate hike Wednesday would be the 8th since last March. It would put the Fed's funds target rate at 4.5 to 4.75. That's just half percentage point away from the Fed's estimated endpoint, or terminal rate, range of 5 to 5.25. I think he'll push back on financial conditions. I think the markets are expecting that. I think the people realize how much credit spreads have moved, how much the equity market has moved, how much tech stocks have moved this month has been extraordinary, said Rick Reeder, BlackRock's Chief Investment Officer for Global Fixed Income. Look, there's something we need to talk about. Number one, the big problem with this is, yes, the inflation may be cooling off, but that's because there are people are not participating in the economy. The amount of disposable income is dropping drastically among Americans, which means, again, less need for new cars, new TVs, new clothes, new jewelry, new flowers. And as the demand goes down for those things, the people who manufacture them go down, and then they have less disposable income. And we're still sitting at 5 to 6% inflation on top of 7 to 8% inflation. And it's not decreasing. It's not getting back under control. It's just flattening out right now because there's no place to go but linear at this point. It's not. People think that this is all over right now and we're actually fixing it, who actually believe that 5% is a good inflation rate. We were complaining about it when it hit 3. All the way back in March of last year. But, you know, they're going to do what they're going to do, and we still have another spending package that has yet to kick in. Although, I'm not going to lie, I would not be surprised to see that up on the chopping block as we go into the debt ceiling fight. But we'll see what happens with that. Let's talk about what happened in Florida yesterday that was breaking while we were live. From Spectrum News, Bay News 9. Lakeland police say suspect vehicle found after 11 people shot on Monday afternoon. From Brody Waddell of Polk County. This is a live update. I'm actually, let's see. Let's do this one first, then we'll do that one. So we're going to start with News Channel 8 on your side, out of Tampa. Lakeland shooting leaves 10 injured, suspects at large. From Caitlin Breezecorn, Dylan Abad, and Jack Royer. Lakeland police are investigating a shooting that left 10 people injured Monday afternoon. Investigators said the shooting happened near Iowa Avenue North and Plum Street around 3:43 p.m. Police say there are 10 victims, 2 with critical injuries and 8 with non-life-threatening injuries. 1 man was shot in the abdomen and another was shot in the face. Sam Taylor said all the victims are all men between 20 and 35. As of this report, authorities have not yet identified a suspect or released a motive for the shooting. Taylor said a dark-colored Nissan 4-door pulled up to the scene and 4 male shooters started firing from both sides of the car. This is something that doesn't happen in Lakeland, Taylor said. I've never worked in an event where this many people have been shot at one time. Taylor said the suspects may have been wearing masks. Investigators said they found a felony amount of marijuana at the scene. We consider ourselves a small town. When stuff like this happens, it hit homes, Taylor said. Taylor said the public should not be concerned for their safety. Detectives believe the shooting was targeted. Investigators are looking for a dark-colored Nissan 4-door that has dark windows and a temporary tag. News Channel 8 obtained an exclusive video of the moments the shots rang out in the neighborhood. Let's listen. Maybe we'll listen. There it goes. It's thinking about it. It's going to do something. It's going to do something. So basically this just appears to be a security camera off to the side, and I'm going to play this one just again, one more time. Maybe. The technology on News Channel 8 appears to be just a little bit jank. Let's give that another shot. Okay, I see what they did. So it appears actually that they blanked out the point where the shooting was happening. For sensitive viewers, of course, because you could see over on the other side that it was blurred. And then just a moment after all that happened, the blue Nissan came tearing out of there, and the filter came out of that section of the video. Anyone with information about the shooting is asked to call the police department. Crime Stoppers is offering a reward of up to $5,000 for people with information that leads to an arrest of the suspects involved. To remain anonymous and eligible for the reward, call 1-800-226-TIPS or dial **TIPS. So, no idea. And I noticed, by the way, that this, like the typical actors, the Democrat actors, the anti-gunners, were right away up there to tell you Hey, this is terrible. Oh, hey, by the way, this is a damning indictment of Ron DeSantis wanting to sign the constitutional carry law into place. But see, as more and more is found out about this, because of course they were talking about this as this was happening, as this was breaking, as more and more details come out, as it now comes out that 4 people stepped out of the vehicle all wearing masks and started shooting into the crowd, and it may be targeted, this sounds, I'm sorry, just a little bit like gang violence to me. Number one, if there were constitutional carriers in this crowd, which it's likely to say if this was a targeted shooting, that whoever was targeting this did specifically look for groups that may not be carrying, or a crowd that may not be carrying. But in a constitutional carry situation, especially out in the open, somebody would have been possibly able to start shooting back, number one. And number two, this one is probably not going to fit the narrative, and in fact there may be a certain skin hue that gets left out of this, because this is starting to disappear in a hurry. There aren't a lot of people talking about this anymore. There's still some news out on the front page, but it's just the narrative was there and then it was gone. So back to what we were talking about before. Lakeland police say suspect vehicle found after 11 people shot Monday afternoon. From Brody Waddell. Lakeland police Tuesday morning said an 11th shooting victim came forward and was treated at a hospital after more than 40 shots were fired in a city neighborhood Monday afternoon. Police Chief Taylor says the suspected vehicle, a new blue Nissan sedan, has likely been found. He told reporters that lab work and processing still needs to be done, but the vehicle was found in West Lakeland. We have a high level of confidence that we have located the vehicle, Taylor said. Taylor says no arrests have been made, but that detectives worked in the early morning hours to identify suspects. He said police have received very promising leads, very promising information. He also said the police believe that the suspects are not Lakeland residents. Where is Lakeland, by the way? What metro is this that people probably came out to go and perpetrate this horrific crime? Let's look. I think it's Orlando. But we will find out in just a moment. Bring this over here for you guys. Let's zoom her out. No, it's not. It's kind of between Orlando and Tampa, so yeah, honestly, I look at this a little bit and say, hey, maybe this isn't, well, I still think that there's a gang aspect to it, and there does appear to be urban sprawl, like if you know the colors of the map and can, have practice looking at some of this stuff, there's some urban sprawl out there, so, but it looks like somebody came from either Orlando or Tampa to go back and do a targeted hit. Two of the victims remain in critical condition at Tampa General. The other 9 victims have either been released from the hospital already or will be released today. Police are offering a reward for information that leads to an arrest. In the case, anyone with information is asked to call 1-800-226-TIPS. That is 1-800-226-TIPS. So, and oddly enough, just looking at this here, I mean, this is, well, if you're going to perpetrate something this horrific, you usually do want to go do it in something that doesn't really stand out. And you do it in one of the most innocuous vehicles out there. I mean, there have to be 100,000 of these things on the road. I think one of my friends out in Mass actually has one, probably pretty similar to that, if I remember correctly. Hers is obviously not that one, because hers is, what, 3,000 miles up the eastern seaboard? I don't even know how far it is up there. Is it 1,000? 1,000 miles up the eastern seaboard from where this happened. But that is where we are with that. Let's talk Memphis. from Commercial Appeal to start with, which I don't know where this is out of. Memphis Commercial Appeal. This is out of Memphis. That's a weird name for a newspaper, but it is owned by the USA Today, so there is that aspect and avenue to it. 4 officers indicted in Tyree Nichols' death had previous reprimands, suspensions by MPD. From Lucas Finton. 4 of the 5 former Memphis police officers indicted for their role in the death of Tyree Nichols were suspended or received a written reprimand during their tenure with the department. Wow, I lost my place again. With only one charged officer avoiding internal discipline during his tenure. In personnel files obtained through public records request by the Commercial Appeal, 4 officers were either reprimanded or suspended for their failure to report when they used physicality, failing to report alleged domestic violence, or for damages sustained to their squad cruisers. The 4 former officers indicted who had either a reprimand or suspension were Demetrius Haley, Desmond Mills Jr., Justin Smith, and Emmett Martin III. Tadarius Bean, who was also fired and indicted, did not have any reprimands or suspensions in the record as viewed by the Commercial Appeal. Records found that the officers faced little to no consequences as they made forceful arrests with no documentation and drove recklessly to scenes. In at least 2 cases, officers were praised, their actions described by MPD colleagues as one-off events for a good employee. It is unclear if the department required records to prove these assertions. One summary from a hearing about domestic violence call that went undocumented credited the police officer under review for being a top producer. Haley was given a written reprimand in November 2021 after he failed to file a response to resistance form. In February 2021, a woman complained after he grabbed a complainant by the arm and turned her around to be handcuffed as she resisted arrest, a statement of charges said. Memphis police are required to complete a response to resistance form when any part of the officer's body is used to compel compliance, according to department policies and procedures. Officer Haley advised that he understood the policy, but had simply mistaken, in this case, as to the amount of force necessary to require a blue team entry. The hearing summary read. During the hearing, Memphis Police Lieutenant William Ackred said Haley was a hard-working officer who routinely made good decisions and that he was sure that this was a limited event. A few months later, Haley was driving his cruiser, speeding in emergency mode, meaning the lights and siren were on, and lost control of the car as he made a turn. He hit a curb and a stop sign. Haley said he was responding to another officer's call for help, as the other officer said he had a suspect at gunpoint. The internal charge was dismissed after the hearing, with the hearing officer citing minimal damage to the car. Mills Jr. was also given a written reprimand for not filing a response to resistance form after a March 2019 arrest. In the statement of charges, Mills Jr. was accused of taking a woman police were trying to arrest to the ground to assist in handcuffing her. He did not file the form after the arrest. So, one thing to note, as we're talking about this here, it does appear that at least in the instance of these particular 5 officers, using an excessive amount of force to induce compliance it's a regular thing for these people. So with that being said, I guess it's really hard to be surprised over what happened. Now again, the most important thing that I want to find out about this is what led up to both the reckless driving charge, and then the fact that they needed to subdue him in the way that they did. That is what I'm more concerned about than anything else. But now that we're starting to see things like this, and it seems to always be going towards women too, I've noticed, is what is causing these things to happen? And how do we correct it? Martin III was suspended for 3 days without pay for not checking the back seat of his cruiser after leaving a shift. A silver revolver was found in the back seat. He He was later suspended for a day without pay after he didn't take a report after responding to an alleged domestic violence call September 27, 2020. Officers are required to take a report of domestic violence calls per Memphis Police Department policy and state law. In the hearing, Officer James Schmedes spoke on Martin III's behalf. Schmedes advised that Officer Martin was one of the shift's top producers, the hearing summary said. That's also a point of concern for me. That's the libertarian in me that's talking about that. What is a top producer? Please explain this to me. Because, I mean, to me, it seems like you should be striving not to be a producer. I mean, is this the person who writes the most tickets? Is this the person who brings the most people in? Who can trump up the most charges? I don't know. But what I can tell you right off the bat is, just from reading this article, I see that there are problems. There are internal problems in the department, and there are problems out there, so... And it's a pain that somebody had to die to see this. Smith received a 2-day suspension in July 2021 after hitting another vehicle and causing it to spin out and hit a third vehicle. According to the statement of charges, Smith was driving an unmarked cruiser that was not in emergency mode when he hit the back end of an F-150. That vehicle then spun out and hit the driver's side of a Malibu. So, right there, I'm starting to see that this is a pattern. What's the solution to the pattern? I don't know. I'm not going to stand here and say that I've got a crystal ball and I have all the answers to all this. But I will report what appears to be happening and what appears to be also being ignored and explored as we look into things like this. Let's grab one from NBC. 3 Memphis EMTs are fired for their response to the fatal police beating of Tyree Nichols. From Doha Madani. 3 EMTs who responded to the fatal beating of Tyree Nichols were fired Monday after an internal investigation, the Memphis Fire Department said on Monday. Robert Long, Jamichael Sandridge, and Lieutenant Michelle Whitaker were found to have violated multiple department policies and protocols in their patient response to Nichols on January 7th, the fire department said in a statement. Their actions or inactions at the scene that night do not meet the expectations of the Memphis Fire Department and are not reflective of the outstanding service the men and women of the Memphis Fire Department provide daily in our community. These are the 3. The fire department was sent to the scene of the Nichols traffic stop at 8:31 p.m. after a police call because of a person pepper sprayed. The fire department noted Long, Sandridge, and Whitaker were directed to a second location and arrived to find Nichols leaning against a police vehicle at 8:41 p.m., 10 minutes after the initial call. Long and Sandridge responded to Nichols while Whitaker and a driver remained in the vehicle, the fire department said. Our investigation has concluded that the 2 EMTs responded based on the initial nature of the call, person pepper sprayed, and information they were told on the scene, and failed to conduct an adequate patient assessment of Mr. Nichols, the fire department said. Okay, I have a problem with this. Let me read a little bit more to see if I can correct it, but I have a problem with this. An ambulance was requested after the initial interaction with Nichols, the department said, and an emergency unit was dispatched at 8:46 p.m. The department said the unit arrived at the scene at 8:55 and initiated care and took Nichols to a hospital at 9:08 p.m., about 27 minutes after Long, Sandridge, and Whitaker arrived at the second location. Voicemails left at phone numbers listed for Long and Whitaker were not immediately returned on Monday evening. Sandridge did not immediately respond to an email requesting comment. Video of the stop showed officers using force against Nichols multiple times, including pepper spray. The officers, who appeared to punch Nichols, strike him with a baton, and seemingly kick him in the face while he was detained, the video released on Friday showed. Nichols was taken in critical condition to the hospital, where he died 3 days later. The Shelby County Medical Examiner's Office hasn't released an official cause of death. Well, he got beaten to death. Although I'm sure they're looking to see if there was poison involved, or maybe he had an allergic reaction to medicine or food from the hospital or something like that. It is, usually in a beatdown, from what I understand, and I'm not in the medical field, usually in a beatdown, it's not something that happens 3 days later. Typically. I'm not going to stand here and say it never happens, but it's typically not a thing. So I am curious as to why the report and the cause of death are guarded, especially, again, reminding you that this happened 3 weeks ago. Almost 4 weeks ago at this point. This is not something new. As far as the EMTs, I question why they needed to be fired. And I'm going to come right off and say I think that there's going to be more information about these 3 EMTs and how they responded. There has to be. Because given the information that they had in front of them, given the information the police had said, and the fact that it was dark and he was standing against or leaning against a police cruiser, does tell me that they most likely were following at least some sort of protocol. Get him in there, get the initial checkout, and then get him out to the hospital. And I'm not saying that they couldn't see that he was beaten immediately in the dark. But what I am saying is, could they assess, could they say that yes, he has life-threatening injuries while they're on the street in the dark, while tensions are high, and the cops that just beat the crap out of him are still standing there, but while he is still standing up? There's more to the story. I'm telling you right off the bat, there's more to this story. This can't be it. I mean, this is all that NBC is reporting, but this cannot be it. Apparently there are 2 more officers relieved of duty. Let's have a quick look at this.
Good evening, everyone. The images that shook the nation are still reverberating tonight and shaking loose some important new details. Memphis police today confirming a 6th and now 7th officer has been removed from the job over the incident. Earlier today, officials acknowledged that Officer Preston Hemphill was on the scene.
A time where it's really important for us to be thoughtful about what's going into how they think about their own self-worth and their relationships, and the skewed and often distorted environment of social media often.
7. Last week, 5 officers were charged with.
What just happened there? Did the editor have a stroke? Like, we're sitting in here and the anchor is talking about 2 more officers being relieved and showing an officer, a white officer, on the screen, and then all of a sudden we're all being forced to listen to Mehdi Hassan speak for about 10 seconds. Did somebody F up? Did somebody screw up here? That was so weird. I'm not the only one who saw that, right?
With second-degree murder, and the fallout now extending to the Memphis Fire Department. 2 medical technicians and a lieutenant fired over their handling of the incident. The death of Tyre Nichols has become the latest reckoning for a country still struggling to define and bring about police reform. Priscilla Thompson has the latest for us from Memphis, and a warning: we will be showing some of that graphic video in this report.
Tonight, the Memphis Fire Department terminating 2 medical workers, Robert Long and Jamichael Sandridge, and 1 lieutenant, Michelle Whittaker, who all responded to the police beating of Tyre Nichols. The department says an internal investigation found they violated numerous MFD policies and protocols. 2 Memphis police officers are on administrative leave as investigations into the brutal beating death of Tyre Nichols continues. One of the officers, Preston Hemphill, a 5-year veteran of the force, was relieved of duty alongside the 5 now fired officers shortly after the January 7th traffic stop, according to the department. They say information about the disciplinary action was not immediately released because the investigation is still ongoing.
You guys are really doing a lot right now.
Hemphill can be seen on his body cam helping pin Nichols down during the initial confrontation until Nichols fled on foot. Authorities say he used a taser.
I hope they stop his ass.
Nichols died 3 days later. An attorney for Hemphill says his client was never present at the second scene and is cooperating with the investigation.
We think that he should be terminated like the other 5 black officers.
Yeah, of course you do, because your name is Benjamin Crump.
that were terminated.
Attorneys for the family of Tyree Nichols calling the revelation disappointing, saying in a statement, it certainly begs the question why the white officer involved in this brutal attack was shielded and protected from the public eye, and to date from sufficient discipline and accountability. On Saturday, the Memphis Police Department announced it would permanently deactivate its Scorpion unit that the 5 ex-officers now charged with murder belong to.
Units of that kind sometimes can, both in Memphis and around the country, can sometimes breed a culture of over-aggressiveness.
Officials declined to say whether Hemphill was a member of the unit, created little over a year ago to address violent crime. All of this has led to renewed calls for police reform, putting pressure on lawmakers to revisit now stalled negotiations that began after the murder.
So they're talking about one officer being relieved of duty. They're not mentioning a second one, so I am a little confused about that. As far as with Hemphill being on the scene, but not in the second scene, that doesn't necessarily relieve him of duty, especially if, because a big part of this, and one of the concerns about this, number one, we only saw one body cam. We saw one surveillance video and one body cam. And we don't have dash cam. The dash cam that we saw, actually it wasn't dash cam, that was body cam as well in the car. But I mean, that was the last officer responding to the scene after the beating had already started. And that particular officer spent a lot of time facing away. And again, my big question is what led up to this? And I'm going to come right off and say this really looks like this was targeted. I know there was some grumbling about this in the initial when this first happened, but this really looks like this may have been a targeted, maybe gang members on the police force, which, I mean, that wouldn't be the first time, using their authority to go back and hunt someone down. I don't know. There's something the mainstream media is not telling us about this. And it's driving me nuts. Unfortunately, I do have some more about this. I was about to say, unfortunately, I don't have any more about this, but I do. Because we still have to come back and race bait it, because, well, Ben Crump is there. From the Daily Wire, mother of Tyree Nichols. I hate the fact that it was 5 black men that actually did this. Your child is deceased, and this is where your mind goes? From Daily Wire News. Rovon Wells, the mother of Tyree Nichols, responded to the tragic death of her son during an interview over the weekend where she expressed disappointment over the fact that the police officers involved were black. 5 former Memphis Police Department officers were arrested and charged for their alleged involvement in the death of the 29-year-old male who died earlier this month in a hospital days after the confrontation with police. Nichols died on January 10th, 3 days after. The Memphis police pulled him over in a traffic stop, local media reported. Nichols and the 5 former police officers charged over his killing are black. Authorities stopped Nichols on January 7th for reckless driving near Rains Road and Ross Road in Memphis. Officers Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Emmett Martin III, Desmond Mills Jr., and Justin Smith have all been charged with 2 counts of official misconduct, local media reported, and with 1 count of official oppression, a second-degree murder, aggravated assault, act in concert, and 2 counts of aggravated kidnapping. Man, this is aggravating. I believe in my heart that my son was here on assignment from God, Wells told Al Sharpton on MSDNC's Politics Nation. Yes, he's on a mission from God to go back and reignite the race base, the race hustling in this country. He finished his assignment and God took him back home, even though this tragedy happened to my son. I truly believe there's going to be a greater good that comes out of this. Wow, this is cult behavior. Holy crap. Holy crap. Yeah, my son is the sacrificial lamb used by God to go back out and get more people rioting in the streets and mad at the police. Wow. I can't believe I'm reading this. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm reading this. And that is what keeps me going and continuing to fight this justice for my son, because I'm not going to stop until every person that had anything to do with my son's death is prosecuted under the fullest extent of the law. Which, in the case of this beating, yes, that needs to happen. And by the way, if this other dude that got put on administrative leave was involved in this, in the targeting, etc., or anything else, by the way, that led up to this that we still don't know, then throw his ass in the clink too. Let's listen.
In order to keep me going, this has been very difficult for me. Like I said, I have to stay strong for my other kids, but I believe in my heart that my son was here on assignment from God.
Oh my God.
He finished his assignment and God took him back home. Even though this tragedy happened to my son, I truly believe that there's going to be a greater good that comes out of this. And that is what keeps me going and continuing to fight this justice for my son, because I'm not going to stop until every person that had anything to do with my son's death is prosecuted to the fullest of the law.
If there are those that were involved in any of these mishaps, as a mother, if they're watching, what would you say to them tonight?
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I said, as a mother, if any of those that were involved in what happened to your dear son, if they're watching tonight, what would you say to them? What would you want them to hear from you as a result of what happened to your child?
Well, they actually shamed their own families. I mean, you shamed your own families. You shamed the communities. You just brought a bad taste to everybody's mouth. I don't know. Speak of it. I don't know. I just
Hey,
it wasn't me calling you this time.
Oh. No, don't say that on TV. Are you serious? Man, really? Well, anyway. Yeah, it's... I don't know. I don't have kids. But I understand being around my nephews and nieces. And knowing that if they were ever taken away from me, I was devastated for months over the fact that my ex-girlfriend took our dog away from me. And I cannot imagine sitting on TV 4 weeks after my child was killed, saying, I'm just sorry that there wasn't white people for me to blame. And my son's dying is what made it like, oh my God, I can't. Well, I'm black-pilled. I can tell you that right off the bat. Alright, now I don't have anything more for this, which is good, because I could get up and throw up right now. That is just beyond ridiculousness. This is just, I don't care who we step over to get what we're looking for. My child, my flesh and blood, is just another stepping stone to over. Oh my God, I can't even with this. This is beyond. There's no value for human life here, and you see it just as well as I do. All right, let's talk about reparations then instead. See if this black pills me any less. Chair of California Reparations Panel pushes for wealth, mansion, or property tax to pay billions to descendants of slaves. Experts testify white people are more likely to be rich, so it should help accumulate funds. Yeah, that's actually a thing. From Melissa Koenig for DailyMail.com. The chair of California's reparations panel is apparently pushing for a wealth tax, mansion tax, or property tax to pay billions of dollars to descendants of slaves. Members of the California task force, set up under woke Gavin Newsom, have previously reported paying each black resident in the state $223,000, which is, by the way, going to just wind up back in the hands of rich, white, wealthy businessmen. It's just like what we did when they said the greatest transfer of wealth from the middle class to the upper class under the pandemic, because you didn't allow the small businesses to stay open and get money from the people, and all that was allowed to be open in brownout mode was Amazon and Walmart and Target and the big businesses like that, and McDonald's. Your family diner couldn't stay open, but that McDonald's could sure stay open. To make up those funds, Camilla Moore tweeted over the weekend that the panel is considering proposing a state estate tax, a mansion tax, or graduated property tax in its final recommendations to the state legislature, which are due this summer. The panel heard from tax law experts that white people are more likely to be healthy, so proposals to redistribute wealth would directly benefit the black population. Yeah, I'm sure Will Smith will be paying millions of dollars in additional taxes on his estate, which I don't know where it is, but I would guess is probably in Bel Air. Calls for reparations to compensate black Americans for the damage caused by slavery are nothing new, but the left-leaning states and cities have recently run into problems where they have tried to put those ideas into practice. Many proposals have been controversial, with questions about who gets paid, how much, and by whom proving divisive. Yeah, I mean, they want to go out and give reparations to anybody whose skin tone is darker than mine. It doesn't matter if your parents are first generation from Namibia or Somalia. If you're black, you get reparations. And it doesn't matter if your family was from poor, white, impoverished America during the 1800s and never owned a slave in your lives. You're white, you have to pay. But furthermore, and this is the big part with this here, is they're also coming to realize that this money's got to come from somewhere, and they're trying to find ways to bilk it out of people who have put their money into assets that appreciate wealth, rather than cash that depreciates wealth, especially at 8.1% interest. But again, and this is the hardest part with this. Yes, there is an on-paper wealth to these hard assets like this, but in order to liquidate something off of that, number one, you have to find somebody richer to go buy it to get any sort of market value out of it. Otherwise, you go to sell it for a loss. They don't understand property. They don't understand wealth. They don't understand assets. And it shows. Among the suggestions brought up at the California Reparations Task Force meeting on Friday were proposals to tax the rich, such as through a state estate tax or a mansion tax, incentivizing wealthy people to help fund reparations by providing a tax break, or help all taxpayers below the median wealth line by means of tax credit, MarketWatch reports. Their suggestions were all based on the notion that current U.S. tax code favors the wealthy, who they say are more likely to be white. This is so racist. This might be the most racist episode of Contemporary I've ever done, and it's going in the other direction, way from what most people say is racism. Our tax laws are written to have a disparate impact. Dorothy Brown, a tax professor at Georgetown Law and author of the book Whiteness and Wealth. You're a tax professor and you believe that? how the tax system impoverishes black Americans and how we can fix it, testified. Black people are likely to pay higher taxes, she said, because they're less likely to gain access to the same tax breaks as their white peers. Oh my God. Oh my God. These people don't have a clue. She said the best idea to fund reparations would be a wealth tax credit applicable to all taxpayers and households with below median wealth. I admire the fact that you have figured out that nothing comes from nowhere. But again, and this is the hardest part, because especially when you look at modern monetary theory, those morons, when they come out and say, we don't need to do anything, and we don't have to explain where the money comes from because the government just prints it, the government just makes money. And by the way, even some of my friends who have been in the Black Panther movement who believed that the government literally makes money, so why is it that they need to do this or do that, or why can't they just feed everybody, or this or that and the next thing? No, the money has to have something solid backing it. Wealth, assets, etc. GDP, it has to have something backing it. But these people also believe, and I mean it shows in something like this, where this tax professor is telling you, is that taxes aren't actually there to generate revenue for the government. They're there to punish the rich, to try to knock the rich back down. But, well, that's where we're at with that. I can't believe we're in, that this is actually a real conversation we're having. From Axios, HHS discusses public health emergency declaration on abortion. From Oriana Gonzalez, the Biden admin is weighing a plan to declare a public health emergency that would free up the resources to help people access abortions. Both abortion rights advocates and Democratic lawmakers have urged the Department of Health and Human Services and President Brandon to take such a step in response to the overturning of Roe, which they say has created a full-scale reproductive health crisis across the U.S. The lawmakers argued that such a move would allow the admin to help support states, protect abortion, deploy public health services corps, and give the government the ability to accelerate access to new medications authorized for abortion. No, it will allow the executive branch to bypass the legislative branch and force abortion down our throats. And this, by the way, is the same reason that the argument was about Roe versus Wade for so long. Because it was never about... I'm gonna tell an uncomfortable truth about this right now. The argument over abortion was never about abortion. It is about mandate. Before anything else, the argument about abortion is about mandate. And who has the right to make the decisions in our lives? And it is well known among abortion advocates that the pulse is not there. As much as they try to propagandize and say that Americans are in favor of this and Americans are in favor of that, it is well known that the pulse is not there for the majority of middle America outside of urban centers to legislate abortion. It never has been and it never will be. The reality is that Roe versus Wade set a precedent that meant that we can legislate from the bench. That as long as a case can make it up to the Supreme Court can make a binding decision on it, which essentially becomes law. And Roe versus Wade was treated as law for 50 years. They even said it, like when they did the Supreme Court interviews for Kavanaugh, for Gorsuch, and for Barrett. That it wasn't that it was settled precedent. It was that it was settled law. No, it wasn't settled law because nobody had ever legislated on it. And even if we had a major turn where the pulse of America outside of the major urban areas in California turned and became a pulse that was in favor of, like, Minnesota's proposal. Up to 9 months, up till crowning, possibly even a little bit after crowning, for no reason at all, and you're not allowed to ask for a reason. Even if we fell into that much hedonism and religious despair that became the norm in this country, the precedent would still be desired to have the Supreme Court come back and legislate that, and that's part of the reason they're trying to push it back out to the executive branch. They don't want the dissenters to have a say. They want it to be up off of unelected people to come out here and make a decision like this, because if you can do it about something as heinous as baby murder, then you can do it about anything else. Wealth redistribution, interstate commerce, medical decisions, health insurance, health care. If we started to get to the point where we had death panels out there because of what the Department of Health and Human Services and the executive branch deemed as worthy, do you really think that the people who are in favor of death panels would want people to be able to vote or force their representatives to vote on, or hold their representatives accountable if they voted against the way that their representation wanted them to? No, they wanted to come right up out of the executive branch. The lawmakers argued that such a move would allow the admin to help support states that protect abortion, deploy public health service corps teams, and give the government the ability to accelerate access to new medications authorized for abortion. There are discussions on a wide range of measures that we can take to try to protect people's rights. Xavier Becerra told Axios during a pair of Monday public events that touched on reproductive health access. There are certain criteria that you look for to be able to declare a public health emergency that's typically done by scientists. Scientists who can be bought off by groups like Planned Parenthood. In those fields who will tell us whether we're in a state of emergency, and based on that, I have the ability to make a declaration, Becerra added, when asked about a public health emergency declaration on abortion. He said that there hasn't been a full assessment on what the declaration on abortion would look like and whether conditions merit it, but there's still an evaluation on the topic. Don't forget, we're constantly exploring additional actions we can take to protect and expand access to reproductive health care, including abortion care, and are prioritizing the actions that can give us the highest impact and the most durable solutions, an HHS spokesperson told Axios. Once again, everything you can do to try to keep it out of the legislature, because you know it's something you can't win on. The most dangerous blow to the leftist agenda came when Roe v. Wade fell. And it wasn't because Moloch was going to take their power away from them. It was because of the language made in the decision in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Care, which stated explicitly that it was not in the courts or the executive branch's purview to make a decision for the entire country. Rather, it was on the responsibility of lawmakers, especially on a local sense. It shouldn't be up to unelected justices and bureaucrats. It should be up to your elected officials. And I still applaud that decision. I myself, as most people know, am against abortion. Although, as for me, I don't trust the government to enforce an abortion law. That's why I don't ever want there to be one. I would rather myself put myself in positions where I never need to be involved in abortion, and encourage others to do the same. Because again, if the government does it and makes a law about it, there are going to be all kinds of carve-outs for the senators and representatives' mistresses, their kids, their rich donors. There are going to be so many carve-outs, and it's only going to affect the poors. Like every other law in this country. Yes, Mr. Scott, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health. That was the overturn of Roe versus Wade. Some documents news. Biden's DOJ refuses to cooperate with congressional investigation in a classified document scandal. Of course they do. I mean, was there a doubt in anybody's mind? The DOJ is refusing to cooperate with a congressional oversight investigation into President Brandon's classified document scandal. Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jim Jordan, sent the Justice Department a letter on January 13th requesting documents related to the scandal. Jordan announced his probe on January 13th, a day after AG Garland appointed former U.S. Attorney Robert Hur as special counsel to investigate Biden. Specifically, Jordan wants all documents and communications related to the investigation. Yeah, they're not going to give you that. It's unclear whether the department first came to learn about the existence of these documents and whether it actively concealed this information from the public on the eve of the 2020 elections, Jordan wrote in the letter. It's also unclear what interactions, if any, the DOJ had with President Biden or his reps about mishandling of classified material. The department's actions here appear to depart from how it acted in similar circumstances. In a letter on Monday, Assistant AG Carlos Felipe Uriarte told Jordan the DOJ will not hand over any of the requested material for congressional oversight. Let's be realistic. Is anybody surprised by this? Disclosures to Congress about active investigations risk jeopardizing those investigations and creating the appearance that Congress may be exerting improper political pressure or attempting to influence the department decisions in certain cases, Uriarte wrote. So, under almost any circumstance, I would actually agree with this statement. Under anything that does not involve the president directly in his time as non-president, this is the right answer, by the way. If you, Mr. Scott, are being investigated, or Arbold, or Blindfear, maybe if Ron Helton is here and he's being investigated, both by Congress and the DOJ, which, with Ron Helton, that's actually a possibility. But if you're being investigated by both Congress and the DOJ, no, the DOJ would not turn over records to Congress about the investigation of Ron Helton, because yes, it would tamper with their ongoing investigation. The problem that I have with this is that I said almost every situation this is the correct answer, but the person being investigated just happens to be the chief law enforcement officer of this country and the official head of the DOJ. In practice, Garland is the head of the DOJ, but Garland answers to Biden. So that is a conflict of interest for the DOJ to be the only oversight in this. That is a massive conflict of interest. Judgments about whether and how to pursue the matter are and must remain the exclusive responsibility of the department, he asserted. To divulge information related to the DOJ's ongoing special counsel investigation would, according to Uriarte, violate long-standing policy once again. And, I try not to do the could you imagine if the shoe was on the other foot crap that other people like to do. But I've got to remind everybody of this. If this was the other way around, and this was Bill Barr's DOJ responding to Nancy Pelosi's Congress, with the investigation being led by Adam Schiff, Every headline in every mainstream news outlet would be bloody murder. Bill Barr is being a wingman for Donald Trump. Why won't his DOJ turn over the documents? He's got to turn over the documents. It's a necessity. This is a national security issue. We would be hearing that constantly. All the time. What does he have to hide? Just turn over the documents. It would be a non-stop wall of propaganda. But, I mean, I had to go to the Blaze, Glenn Beck's website, to get this story. Some congressional committee news here from the Daily Wire. Lawmaker dares Biden to declassify alleged Swalwell Fang report. Hey, maybe that's one of the classified documents that he had at Penn Biden Center or at his home next to his Corvette. From Daniel Chayton. If I remember correctly, it would be right around that time, wouldn't it? Wouldn't Swalwell been a representative? Oh look, it brings us right to the early life section. Yeah, that would be just about that time. He was elected in 2012 to start in 2013 while Biden was vice president. Oh, I was joking about that, but that's actually a distinct possibility. Because the Bang Bang thing was happening while he was on the city council in Dublin. Very interesting. I didn't even go into that thinking that. I was just making a joke, but yeah, the timeline would fit. Let's see. A Republican lawmaker dared President Biden to declassify an alleged report detailing the relationship between Eric Swalwell and suspected Chinese spy Bang Fang. Bang Bang with Fang Fang. Rep. Jim Banks, who announced this month that he's running for the Senate, issued the challenge in response to the White House's defense of Swalwell, after McCarthy removed Swalwell from the House Intelligence Committee. In a letter first reported by Breitbart and obtained by the Daily Wire, Banks said for unknown reasons the White House disagrees with the assessment by McCarthy and other members of Congress that Swalwell's past relationship with Fang poses a national security risk and disqualifies Swalwell from receiving access to highly classified information. He cited in a recent press conference in which White House Press Secretary Token Diversity Hire was asked for a response to Swalwell and Adam Schiff being kicked from the intelligence panel. In her response, Diversity Hire said that Swalwell and Schiff, as well as Ilhan Omar, bring a lot to the table when it comes to foreign policy and national security. The press secretary didn't say much else beyond it should be independent before quickly dropping the topic. No video of her doing that, of course, but to remedy any uncertainty, Banks proposed the disclosure of an alleged report described by Breitbart in July of 2021. The news outlet said the U.S. intelligence community had a classified report that contained intricate and intimate details of Swalwell's relationship with Fang, including certain sexual acts they allegedly engaged in together. Well, I mean, that would be news to me, because what have I always said about the situation? I never said that he did it with her. I said it was even worse, because he probably simped for her and she wouldn't give it up, and he still tried to give her whatever it was that she wanted. If the White House's position is correct and Swalwell's past association with the Chinese spy does not preclude him from serving on the House Intelligence Committee, then the White House should immediately declassify its report on Swalwell, Banks wrote. If the report proves that, as the White House is suggesting, Swalwell's relations with Fang Fang were innocuous and do not threaten the national security, then many House Republicans, including me, would support allowing Swalwell to serve on the House Intelligence Committee. I mean, I'd like to see it. I kind of would. I got 2 on the debt ceiling. We'll give you a reprieve. We still got to talk about it because it's still happening, but we'll give you a reprieve. We won't do 7 articles in a row about the same thing. I believe this is an op-ed, even though it's not explicitly stated as an op-ed, just by the way the title is written. Amid debt ceiling standoff, why Biden is refusing to negotiate with Republicans. Well, I mean, that's obvious. Because his handlers told him not to, because he can get away with it, because the news media will cover for him. From Joey Garrison. As President Biden welcomes Kevin McCarthy for a highly anticipated one-on-one on Wednesday, the White House is making one thing clear. There will be no negotiations on the debt ceiling. Biden has drawn a hard line against entertaining spending cuts pushed by the House amid their brinksmanship on raising the amount the U.S. can borrow. It reflects a broader White House strategy. When Republicans reveal the domestic programs they want to cut, the White House is counting on the move proving so unpopular that enough House Republicans will abandon their demands for Congress to act. That's your plan? Are you dumb? What? That's your plan. A Congress that has been advised not to go anywhere near Social Security and Medicare, announcing where they want to spend on the domestics or cut spending on the domestic side, which is likely going to come from military, by the way, and Ukrainian aid. That they'll just abandon it all. Are you dumb? Oh, this makes my brain hurt. If this is true, then we are being led by morons. Oh my god. Oh my god. Guys, this made my brain hurt. The oil moguls never pull out. That's why they have so many kids. Oh my god. I can't believe I just read that. From a reputable, green check verified, respected journalistic. Our plan is to wait for them to reveal what they want to cut spending on it, being so unpopular they abandon it. At what point does the House Plant Chief look up and say, "Hey man, I'm just really being thrown under the bus here"? I don't pre-read these articles, by the way. This is a raw reaction. I had no idea this was what was coming. I'm flabbergasted at this point. And that's really all that's in the article. Joey Garrison got paid to write this article. I'm lost. I'm at a loss for words right now. This took me so badly by surprise. I expected more intelligence, maybe something resembling a plan, something that they can come back. Oh no, we're just gonna say that they're. Oh my god. All right, we got to keep going before I look at this and just my brain melts. But this is actually, now that I see this is actually taking this a step further from Fox News. How a group of Democrats and Republicans could bypass McCarthy and lift the debt ceiling. Good luck, from Chad Pergram. What Congress tackles or fails to accomplish often boils down to the math. But a potential crisis over the debt ceiling later this year could really be about the math, even more than other things that are about the math on Capitol Hill. Full Nero, that's a good word for it. That is a good word for it. But it's also about the process. Congress must raise the debt ceiling by early June, or the nation may default. A failure to lift the debt limit could prompt the financial markets to spiral out of control, astronomically drive up the price of lending for homes and cars, and spur a global economic meltdown. Such a scenario would make the 2008 financial crisis resemble a couple of bounced checks. They start with a fear porn, and by the way, reminder that Fox News is not your friend. They're the same uniparty as all the rest of the big names. So we know this, we've been talking about this. It sounds simple. Both the House and Senate must pass the same bill. Republicans hold a 5-seat majority in the House. Democrats preside over a 1-seat majority in the Senate. However, 60 votes are needed to terminate a filibuster in the Senate. This actually might be able to be considered as budget reconciliation, so they might be able to bypass the filibuster on this. Just note of point for that. You would have to check with the parliamentarian, but I think that this could pass the filibuster, or bypass that, as a reconciliation. A determined group of House Republicans is loath to support any measure that implicitly signals more debt, even if this debt in the U.S. is already accrued. Around 85% of all federal spending goes towards popular entitlement programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Coupled with the Pentagon, Republicans generally support all 4 of those areas. Republicans insist they will only support a debt ceiling increase that addresses the root of these spending explosions, yet GOPers don't want to trim out these programs. I think a few of them want to trim out the Pentagon. Thus, it's hard to see what most House Republicans might support at all. But not all Republicans are in that camp. Some GOPers are certainly grandstanding about the debt ceiling and excessive spending, but others understand the true financial peril the U.S. could face if Congress fails to act. So what's the math? 218. If all 434 members of the House vote, perhaps 435 following a Virginia special election later this month, the House needs 218 members to pass any bill on the debt ceiling or any other subject. The current breakdown is 222 to 212. That's where the coalition of Democrats and some Republicans may be able to come together and approve a plan to lift the debt ceiling. How do you get it to the floor? Let's examine the parliamentary policies. This spells out a series of avenues the House could take to grapple with the limit, provided they can get the math right. McCarthy finally won the Speaker's election by ceding power to rank-and-file members. That means that lawmakers not named McCarthy are licensed to try to bring up issues that are important to them, not just the Speaker. As such, McCarthy promised an open amendment process. That means members may attempt to put amendments important to them in play on various bills. So imagine it's May and the debt ceiling is looming. McCarthy decides that the House will consider a debt ceiling bill that addresses a significant number of cuts. However, lawmakers are allowed to offer amendments to that bill under McCarthy's promise. Even amendments with which lawmakers may disagree, so even though most Republicans may not want to raise the debt ceiling, others may feel differently. The key is designated the amendment to raise the debt ceiling, an amendment in the nature of a substitute. There are regular amendments, which just alter a word or two, or an amendment may tackle a particular provision of a bill, but a substitute amendment is a different parliamentary animal. A substitute amendment yanks out the existing text of a bill and replaces it with brand new language right down to the comma and semicolon. When the House considers amendments, it stops if it adopts a substitute amendment. That's because the substitute approved by the House becomes the de facto bill. Essentially, it sounds like they're going to cheat. As for Republicans who didn't want to address the debt ceiling, remember that the agreement cut with McCarthy was for a more open process and more amendments. The House took a staggering 56 roll call votes on an energy bill last week. That's what McCarthy's members wanted. The deal was for a more open process, but not just for a few members. If the full House adopts a substitute amendment that lifts the debt ceiling, the gig is up. Another option for the House is to go over the head of McCarthy with a discharge petition. The discharge petition requires action of a hard figure of 218 members to sign to put up a given measure on the floor, regardless of what committees or leadership wants to do. In essence, a discharge petition discharges a bill from committee and plunks it on the floor. It's possible those concerned about the debt ceiling could craft a bill to address the issue and utilize a discharge petition to get a vote. A discharge petition would likely require a similar coalition of some Republicans and most Democrats to cross the 218 threshold. So, I guess there are a couple things to watch, but this is going to get hairy as we go. But regardless, it's not going to sit right with the majority of Americans in this country. All right, let's talk Pfizer. Pfizer issues a response to Veritas' Sting video, but critics characterize its statement as ambiguous. From Courtney Wheel. The global pharmaceutical giant Pfizer has issued a response after Veritas released an undercover video which suggests that Pfizer may have engaged in directed evolution of the pinko pox so that it could develop vaccines to combat future variants. On January 25th, Veritas released a bombshell video featuring Jordan Tristan Walker, who is allegedly Pfizer's Director of Worldwide Research and Development Strategic Operations and mRNA Scientific Planning in New York City. In the 10-minute video, Walker allegedly admitted that Pfizer may have manipulated the pinko pox virus so that the company could continue developing vaccines for it. One of the things we're exploring is why don't we just mutate the pinko pox ourselves so we can preemptively develop new vaccines, right? So that we have to do that. Walker allegedly said in the video, if we're going to do that, though there's a risk of you could imagine no one wants to be having a pharma company mutating a virus. While Walker stopped short of calling such tactics gain-of-function research, he did call it directed evolution and laughed that the pinko pox is going to be a cash cow for us for a while going forward. In the days following the release, Pfizer kept silent, but on Friday the company finally issued a statement expressing a desire to set the record straight. Some critics, however, have claimed that the statement all but confirms the accusations made against Pfizer. On one hand, the statement asserted unequivocally that in the ongoing development of the Pfizer-BioNTech pinko pox vaccine, Pfizer has not conducted gain-of-function or directed evolution research. On the other hand, the statement later seemed to hedge that assertion a bit by adding that Pfizer routinely assesses the activity of an antiviral by conducting computer simulations or mutations of the main protease. While the statement insisted the main protease is a non-infectious part of the virus, and that such studies are required by US and global regulators for all antiviral products, the statement also seemed to confirm that Pfizer does conduct some measure of virus engineering. Robert Malone, who appears in the Sting video to explain some of the medical implications of Pfizer's alleged directed evolution research, expressed dissatisfaction with Pfizer's response. One, Pfizer lawyers did not throw their director of R&D operations and the scientific planning under the bus. Two, there's no denial of what he said. Three, no denial of that he is Pfizer's staff. And four, swapping new spikes sequences into the original Wuhan one is technically gain-of-function research. Well, and that's one of the things too, especially with any Veritas video, is verification of the identity of the person. Now, Pfizer does have enough lawyers to go back and scrub the identity of somebody. But one of the hard parts is, again, no matter where you stand on this, you're going to see what you want to see. And that's one of the hard parts when we look at any of this right now, is we've become so tribal that we can find explanations going both directions. A lot of what I've seen just in the world and the way that the vaccines keep coming and we keep getting pushed for another vaccine would confirm what the gentleman said in the video. But people are doing digging right now and saying they can't find any information on this guy online anywhere. It's like he doesn't exist. Like maybe he came out and gave a fake name. Or the entire thing was acted. Or staged. I don't know. There's enough reasonable doubt for me off of this, but there's enough reason out there as well for us to look at this and say, okay, it's believable that Pfizer would do something like this. I've been very cautious about this particular video. I have definitely been. Because this one was way more dramatic than a lot of the other ones, and unlike most of the other Veritas videos, again, this person's identity was not able to be confirmed. But O'Keefe, before this, did have a fairly good track record of keeping documentation, keeping screenshots, and knowing who it is that he was striking as well. So, I don't know. I've got questions about this one. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. Thousands of pandemic unemployment claims listed the names of still employed government workers, Senator says. From Luke Rosiak. Thousands of federal employees may have wrongfully obtained coronavirus bailouts by claiming to be unemployed. No crap! I said this from the first time they announced that there was going to be a paycheck protection program, that it was rife for fraud. It's a government program. Of course it's going to be defrauded. That's the nature of government programs. They all do it. Even some doing so from their desks at government offices, federal investigators found. Joni Ernst is demanding answers, saying the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee should recover the money that was ripped off and grant each of those who took advantage of the taxpayers by collecting jobless benefits their wish to be unemployed. That's a fancy way of saying fire their asses. It's appalling for anyone fortunate enough to have the reliability of a government paycheck to take advantage of financial assistance intended to provide a lifeline to Americans who lost their jobs or were unable to work as a result of the pinkopox pandemic, Ernst added. A variety of government programs paid significant sums to people who said their jobs had been impacted by the pinkopox in 2020. The DHS Inspector General found that nearly 2,000 applicants for lost wages assistance and unemployment insurance payouts had the names of DHS employees who were ineligible, since they were, of course, employed by the government agency. In fact, of 2,393 applications filed with DHS employees, only 584 could be confirmed as actually eligible for the program, and even some of those bore signs of fraud, such as incorrect amounts. Benefits could also be paid to people whose hours were cut back because of the pandemic, but in 366 cases, the names associated with the unemployment claim actually worked overtime during the relevant period, the audit found. In some cases, the fraud may have been the result of criminals stealing the employees' identities, which is always a possibility, by the way, and successfully filing unemployment claims with them. In others, there were indications that employees were to blame, including that some government assistance forms were actually filled out from the computers registering to the DHS computer network. Again, I remind you, that is the nature of government programs, to be exploited, to be cheated. It always happens. Welfare, unemployment, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, the ACA, housing assistance. I have seen, out of just the 7 examples that I've listed, at least one example on all 7, personally, being familiar with somebody who was taken advantage of those programs. Family Medical Leave Act, I know somebody personally who took advantage of that. And that person went and backpacked through Europe when he did. Government programs are open because ambiguous natures of the way that they're done, and so many of these claims coming in that it's impossible to process and analyze them all. Speaking of things that are stupid, State Farm, Progressive, refusing to cover certain Hyundai and Kia models. From Garrett Bahana. Some Kia and Hyundai owners will have a hard time getting insurance. State Farm and Progressive are not writing new policies on certain vehicles in some markets. The problem is that some of the models of vehicles are too easy to steal. Affected vehicles include those manufactured between 2015 and 2019 that don't have immobilizers to prevent the vehicle from starting if a key is not present. Oh, you people with lack of imagination. Both companies said the decision only applies to new policies. Any existing policyholders can continue renewing their insurance. So, let's not do anything about the crime problem. Let's not do anything about what's happening, what's causing this to happen. Let's not even urge people to get out of these markets. Well, I guess I get a little bit of an urge to get out of these markets. Let's go ahead and punish the people. And by the way, under most circumstances, if you're buying a 15 to 19 Kia and Hyundai, you're not on the top of the world. So let's punish the people who are not rich enough to run out and buy a new Silverado, or a Tesla, or the top of the line Dodge SUV. Who may want to go and live in Milwaukee. And Milwaukee is, by the way, one of the markets that they're doing about this. I know people who live in Milwaukee who are affected by this. People who live in Milwaukee and just want to go to work and found a great deal on a 2016 Sophia. No, they don't make Sophias anymore. Rio. 2016 Rio. But now can't go back and insure it. So if it does get jacked, that person's out everything. I've never been stranded because of anti-theft crap. A little story on the side of that, though. I've seen a dealer get stranded by that. A little side note off this one. I've told this story before. I don't know if I've ever told it on Contemporary before. But the local Ford dealer where I used to live, I had my eye out, and I was fixing my credit to the point of buying a vehicle for a while. I had an 01 F-150 that had the gigantic top key that actually had the passive anti-theft device in the key. So you needed to use a certain key that was programmed to the code of. It had a radio transmitter in the key that transmitted a signal to the ECM to turn the fuel pump on, is what it did. Now, in that particular truck, the previous owner gave me a second key that didn't have the passive anti-theft on the top. It was just a regular little Ford key, and he told me to put that in my wallet. Keep the regular key, the big top key in my key ring, but put that one in my wallet, and if I ever locked my key in the truck, then I could use that key to go back and open the door, because it was, it would open the door, but it wouldn't fire the fuel pump. So you couldn't lose it if you lost your keys, but you could use it to at least get in the vehicle and go search the vehicle to see if you can find your keys or get something out of there, or etc., etc., etc. Now, I'd gone in to the local Ford dealer and was talking to the salesman, thinking about buying a 2010 F-150. But I didn't have time to sit down and fill out the credit app, especially because I knew that I was kind of teetering on the edge. So I told the guy, I says, well, I want to test drive it. I'll come back because I have to go to work afterwards and fill out your credit app. And he says, okay, well, I'm going to have somebody go, I want to go look and see what the mileage is on your truck. Which, immediately threw me as a little bit suspicious, because on that particular truck, if you open the door, the odometer came on. So I gave him the key out of my wallet, kind of thinking the fact that he was going to do something shifty or park my truck in the wrong place or put it up on a hoist or something until I filled out the application. So I gave him the fuel pump key, the non-anti-theft key, and said, here you go. I'm going to go take this other truck on a test drive. I did. It was a nice truck, but I wound up not buying it. Mostly because when I came back, there were 4 mechanics standing around the door of my truck with a computer, trying to figure out why they couldn't get my truck to start. And after I told them all to scatter and gave the dealer back the key to the truck I just test drove and told him I had no interest in doing business with them ever again, I got my truck, which was straight piped, started it up, revved it up a few times right outside of his desk, and proceeded never to do business with that dealership again. Alright, what else do we have? More crime news here from Fox Business. Lowe's pioneers system to solve organized retail crime. From Daniela Genovese. Lowe's has innovated and successfully tested a new system geared towards tackling organized retail crime in a frictionless and almost invisible manner. It's called Project Unlock, and it's a proof of concept system that underscores how there are methods to solving the industry-wide problem without having to lock up every product on the shelf. Lowe's Chief Digital and Information Officer C. Mantini Godbol told Fox Business in an exclusive interview. On average, there was a 26.5% increase in organized retail crime in 2021, costing the industry almost $100 billion, according to the latest data from the National Retail Federation. So far, the solution has been to lock up products, which Godbol says is disrupting an enjoyable experience that customers rightfully should have. As you can see, all the retailers are locking down stuff and putting physical locks on the product, Godbol said. We said, we wish we had digital locks we could enable and disable with technology. Project Unlock was created and demonstrated at NRF's 2023 Expo in New York City last week to prove that technology can be leveraged to solve organized retail crime without hindering shopping experience for law-abiding citizens. Over the last 12 to 18 months, Lowe's Innovation Labs has been testing out the system that utilizes RFID, chips, scanners, and blockchain. If implemented, it would render a stolen tool inoperable, which would discourage bad actors and in turn keep employees safe, according to Godbol. To work, manufacturers would first have to embed a wireless RFID into a power tool product. The chip is already preloaded with the item's serial number, which is embedded on the box's barcode. Can you already see where there's a problem here? The product is set to be inoperable up until the moment the customer pays for it. An RFID scanner at the register would then read the chip and deactivate the tool for use. Only products that are legitimately purchased are activated. According to Lowe's Innovation Labs, if a power tool is stolen, it wouldn't work, which would make it less valuable to steal. And if you don't think there's a way around that, you are out of your mind. Number 2, the biggest problem here is that, okay, now you've got this RFID chip out there. What is to stop the manufacturer from finding a way to brick this later on? Or having somebody out on your job site or something, a visitor come out here. Or another big problem here is if we've got a situation where somebody hacks the code, finds the radio frequency, and keeps something in the pocket to go back and brick stuff until people throw it out, go dumpster diving, and then go back and... This just adds a whole level of complication of things that, criminals are going to find another way to do. Yeah, they're smart about the bolt cutter chains and make them real short so you can't chop its own chain. But I saw the rotary saw get stolen using the bolt cutters on display next to it. That is hilarious. That's funny. I like that. You know, if we actually had a functioning economy where people didn't have to steal, this wouldn't be an issue. Crime goes down when wages go up. I don't know if you people realize that or not. In a surprisingly based or hypocritical move, you be the judge. On the Daily Wire, Bernie Sanders selling $95 tickets for "It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism" event. From Ben Ziesloft. No video still. Senator Bernie Sanders is selling tickets priced as high as $95 for an event that will promote his new book, It's Okay to Be Angry About Capitalism. Admirers of the Democratic Socialists can purchase seats on Ticketmaster, a company which has recently faced accusations of anti-competitive practices for prices ranging between $35 and $95. The event will be hosted on March 1st at the Anthem, a music venue and auditorium in D.C. Holders of the more expensive tickets will receive a free copy of Sanders' new book, Because Capitalism Always Wins, which is available for $28 from Penguin Random House. The publishing company said the lawmakers' work is a progressive takedown of the uber-capitalist status quo that has enriched millionaires and billionaires at the expense of the working class, and a blueprint for which transformational change would actually look like, all the while making Sanders more of a millionaire and possibly scraping up against the level of billionaire. You can't make this up. Reflecting on turbulent times, Bernie Sanders takes to the billionaire class and speaks blunt truths about our country's failure to address the destructive nature of a system that is fueled by uncontrolled greed and rigidly committed to prioritizing corporate profits over the needs of ordinary Americans, the description of the book asserts. Sanders believes that in the face of these overwhelming challenges, the American people must ask tough questions about the systems that have failed us and demand fundamental economic and political change. This is where the path forward begins, and if you want to know how to take down the evil capitalist system, use your free market and buy the book to tell you how to take down the... Oh my... Okay. So this is so stupid, this makes my brain hurt, but in a sort of jovial and joyous manner. Not like Joe Biden saying, we're going to wait for them to reveal their plan and then see that it's so unpopular that people will come back out and say no, they don't want it. That made my brain hurt in a sad way. This makes my brain hurt, but also makes me want to laugh so hard I pee myself. Which, given the fact that, this was full when I started organizing stories, and I've got this much water in my system right now, is probably a lot easier than I would think. Let's do the last one, do Twitter trending, and head out of here for the day. Of course, because it's a day in why the mainstream media has to talk about the walls are closing in. They're going to get him this time. It's going to happen this time. They're closing in. We got him this time. New York prosecutors convene grand jury in Trump hush money probe. From Adam Reese, Jonathan Dienst, and Dare Gregorian. Prosecutors in New York have convened a grand jury in their investigation into hush money paid to an adult film star who said she'd slept with Trump. Three sources familiar with the situation confirmed. The seating of a grand jury, first reported Monday by the New York Times, a former newspaper, marks a significant phase of Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's probe into the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels during Trump's 2016 campaign. A spokesperson for Bragg declined to comment on Monday. Michael Cohen, who went up the river for this stupid thing, met with prosecutors in recent weeks and could be asked to appear before the grand jury. Cohen pleaded guilty in federal court in 2018 to making the illegal payments to Daniels for the principal purpose of influencing the 2016 presidential election, and said he did so at Trump's behest. Cohen, who was sentenced to 3 years for that and other crimes, maintained in an MSDNC interview that the payment was done at the direction and for the benefit of Donald John Trump. So it says a person who's on his way to prison, and not even a white-collar prison, like pack your bags and tape your butt shut prison, and will say anything to get back out of it. Alright, let's look at Twitter trending for the night and head out of here for the day. Oh, we've got likes and retweets. I always gotta thank Arvolt and Miss Old Soul, which I don't know if she watches or not, but definitely for Arvolt, because he's always right there to retweet, to hit the retweet button. Try to get some more people in here. Alright, let's check out Twitter trending and head out of here for the day, though. Trending! On Tuesdays, we look at the 5 top trends. Not on For You, but actually the US top trends. And see what Twitter thinks that we should be talking about, based on what people are tweeting. Number 1 trending. In sports, Sean Payton. Which I don't know what that is. Mike McCarthy and Sean Payton are the exact same level of coach, yet people talk about Sean Payton like he invented the forward pass, and they talk about McCarthy like he can't spell his own name. Well, being a Packer fan through the 90s and early 2000s, I have some issues with McCarthy, especially the fact that he went off and ran off. But I can't argue the fact that he was a good football coach. I mean, he was such a legend in the field that even though he packed his bags and ran out from Green Bay, he's got several streets and parks in Green Bay named for him. Chargers fans thought they were getting Sean Payton and Vic Fangio just for Penner to get them both in Denver. So I guess this guy's going to Denver. I don't know. I've not paid attention to the NFL in a very long time. I am considering for next season seeing and asking people if they've stopped the BLM stuff. Because I do, for all intents and purposes, I do enjoy football. I know that some of my friends think that it's cringe, but I do enjoy the sports ball. But I just cannot give my views to Goodell, who thought it was okay to put Jacob Blake's name on the back of a football helmet and celebrate what happened. What that person did before he got into a confrontation with police. If you don't let's ride with us when we're losing, you don't dare let's ride with us when we're winning with Sean Payton. If we lose with Sean Payton, feel free to let's ride in our face. So what's happening here? Broncos trading the first round pick for Sean Payton. That the Dolphins, 2 D's in there, traded for Bradley Chubb, that the Niners traded for Trey Lance, so Miami would move down from their pick by the Texans to yet another product of the Laramie Tunsil trade. Biggest domino in recent history. So it looks like Sean Payton is headed to Denver. Well, we'll see how that goes. 911 Lone Star is trending because it's probably on right now. Another one of those medical / cop dramas that's out there. I've never watched it. Probably The Day I Met You, Carlos wanting to marry TK from day one. I know a lot of the big deal about this show seems to be that the 2 lead characters are in a homosexual relationship, from what I understand from reading the Twitter trend. But I know a lot of people are talking about it with the hashtags, so I can't opine on any of this. I don't know. I've never seen the show. There's 2 dudes kissing, so that's kind of what I've got seeing here. All right. BTR on Today is number 3. Big Time Rush, BTR on Today. Do you like my outfit? That's kind of cute. Please stop giving homophobes attention. She literally said gay people need to... no. It does look like this is a co-opted one at this point. I don't know what's going on for this. It sounds like Big Time Rush, which is an old Nickelodeon show, is going to be on the Today Show in less than a week. Big Time Rush announcing less than a week away from the Today Show. Make sure to come out to the plaza that morning. We're going to try to come out there and say hello. Also, we will be giving out tickets to our Irving Plaza event. What I understand about this, and I was, when this show came out, I was fully an adult, is that it was a fictitious band, boy band, that was made for, like the Monkees, it was made for TV, but then they actually went out and became an actual band. I don't know anything else about them. But apparently that's the way we're gonna go. Alright, we are on fourth trend. WWE NXT. It's Tyler Bate, WWE NXT. Dijak beats Von Wagner in a matchup of all time, WWE NXT. Wesley really said come Tuesday. Zoe Stark beats Indy Hartwell. For the love of God, call up Indy, please. So it looks like we're looking over some matches, including Sol Ruka and Zoe Stark from tonight's WWE, which must be NXT, must be what they call it now. What was it before? It was Monday Night Raw, Raw is War, and then it was Thursday, SmackDown. I don't think we had Tuesday. But apparently we have Tuesday now. Are Raw and SmackDown still a thing, by the way? I don't know. A few months ago, I didn't even realize the WWE was still going. I thought that failed a long time ago. I don't know, I never used the YouTube chat. I noticed that we have some different colors in the chat now, and I see that both from the live stream for the music that I have. I don't know what the new stuff is though. They did tell me something about mods and the ability to moderate like blocked words and stuff, but I don't know what's going on with that either. But I am aware that there's something happening. All right, last one. The Texans. D'Amico Ryans, being the head coach of the Houston Texans is my dream job, and my family is thrilled to be back in H-Town. Texans, when they catch me rolling around in their state. From Braxton McCoy. Texans have requested permission to interview 49's passing game coordinator Bobby Slovic for their offensive coordinator position. But the big one there is that the 49ers defensive coordinator, D'Amico Ryans, is going to be the head coach. And congratulations to him. I mean, that's a big deal. Once you've moved up, I talk about McCarthy, and I talk about Holmgren too, by the way. The two big mics in my Packers love when I was younger. Holmgren and McCarthy both. You know, they went out, I think Holmgren, I was really young when Holmgren came to Green Bay. I was really young when Mike Holmgren came to Green Bay. But if I remember correctly, Holmgren did make the move up from an offensive coordinator to head coach. And if I remember correctly, McCarthy came over from being another head coach. But they both went on to be other head coaches in other places. But it's still a big deal when you move up from a coordinator position to be a head coach. So congratulations to D'Amico Ryans. We'll see how he does. Maybe I'll be watching more football next year. We'll see. I don't know. Goodell is going to have a really good explanation as to why he felt the need to put that kind of propaganda out there. And my big thing, of course, is always that When I want to watch football or play video games or watch TV, I don't want to have a political lecture given to me. That's why I don't watch a lot of TV or even a lot of the stuff that's on the streaming platforms that I'm on. I just want to turn my brain off and get away from politics. And I say, like the places we raid when we're on Twitch, I say the same thing when they say, oh, you were talking about news and politics? Yes, that's true. That is what I was talking about. But now that my webcam is off, I don't want to talk about that anymore. I just talked about it for 2 hours straight. I want to turn my brain off, eat some food, and enjoy somebody playing a video game that I love. Alright, let's head out of here for the day. Here's a question. I've been live for 2 hours, and I don't know what scene I'm in, but that's not what's going on here. Okay, now that's right. Alright, I'm out of here for the day. We did 5 trends. We did this. I had something weird happen over on my other monitor. I don't know what happened there, but we're out of here. We did that. Let's throw some outro music up and let's go. Oh crap, that's right. I restarted my computer, so I have to go find my outro music again, which I believe is over here. Thanks for coming back, Mr. Scott, by the way. I know you said you had to go study for your ham radio test, but you finished out the day and kept some good commentary going, so thank you for that. Alright, well, now let's get rid of the competing music here. Alright, so thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, talked about the Twitter trends with us, bored with me while I went through more boring stuff in the debt ceiling, but also stuck with me while we talked about what happened with Nichols. A lot of interesting stuff happening throughout the news today, so we'll be back here tomorrow, hopefully with a little bit more. It was kind of a slow news day today, so definitely for that. If you're on the Twitch side, stick around. We will go find somebody to raid, as we always do out here tonight. No Porch Boys tonight. Remember, Porch Boys moved their weekly show to Sunday. Sunday on the YouTube. Go check out Porch Boys then, or Midget B's playthrough on Mondays, which we checked out last night. But we will see you here next time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Definitely looking forward to that. And until we see you tomorrow, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.